This is the Iron Will Report for the week of July 16th. This week, the timeline that reveals Trudeau knew about the Chinese interference, proof that many of the forest fires are being deliberately set. Mainstream media continues to spiral into the ground, and Quebec mandates MAID for the elderly. That and much more. This is the news that mainstream media won't report, and our government doesn't want you to hear. At the same time as I was reporting last week on David Johnston's non-investigation of Chinese interference in our last two federal elections, the special rapporteur and friend of the Trudeau family resigned from his position. Said Johnston, "When I undertook the task of independent special rapporteur on foreign interference, my objective was to help build trust in our democratic institutions. I have concluded that, given the highly partisan atmosphere around my appointment and work, my leadership has had the opposite effect." Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre stated that Trudeau has destroyed the reputation of a former Governor-General, all to cover up his own refusal to defend Canada from foreign interests and threats. Conservative ethics critic Michael Barrett told CBC that Trudeau was setting Johnston up for failure by not calling a public inquiry from the start. And even NDP leader and Liberal partner Jagmeet Singh tweeted that Johnston had done the right thing, and again called on the government to launch a public inquiry. In similar news, former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole has resigned after 4 terms as a Conservative MP. Nobody cares. Tuesday, David Morrison, former National Security Advisor for the Prime Minister, testified that he read a memo describing Chinese agents' intimidation of MPs in 2021, but did not take action. Morrison said he read it while the 2020 election was in progress. "There was nothing in the note that spurred me to take action," Morrison testified at the House Affairs Committee. "I was National Security Advisor at that point for an indeterminate amount of time. I don't know how long. It would seem to be a week-to-week or month-to-month thing." You were National Security Advisor and you don't know how long you were in that position? You could have Googled it. I did. You were the National Security Advisor from July 2021 to January 2022. Morrison received the memo regarding Chinese interference from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service on August 17, 2021, 2 days after the Prime Minister called a general election. "You didn't twig to the fact that this could be an issue in a campaign that had just been called?" asked Conservative MP John Nater. "The answer to the question is no," replied Morrison. As a result of the Globe and Mail's May 1st publication on the contents of the memo, Cabinet confirmed the until then secret memo, prompting the expulsion of a Chinese spy, Zhao Wei, last month. "It was certainly not something I would have rushed to brief up the Prime Minister on," said Morrison. "It was an information memo, not an action memo," he added. The role of the Prime Minister's National Security and Intelligence Advisor is to manage the flow of information gathered from agencies, turning it into information or advice for the Prime Minister and the Clerk of the Privy Council Office, the bureaucratic agency that supports the Prime Minister's office. Morrison testified the memo was buried in a file 9 pages long, and assumed someone else took action. "When someone like me reads it, we can be quite certain others already know the information and have taken information on it, or it wouldn't be buried in an assessment report," said Morrison. "Someone like you? You were the National Security Advisor. This was your job. And I'm certain that your close relationship with Johnston, having in fact served as Trudeau's personal representative to the G7 summit, had nothing to do with your failure to inform him that Chinese agents were conspiring to see that Trudeau's Liberal government would win the election. Or at least your assertion that you failed to inform him. The timeline of events makes that seem unlikely. In response to demands for a public inquiry, Trudeau appoints his good buddy David Johnston as special rapporteur on March 15th. Johnston then proceeds to conduct a non-investigation wherein he admits he never even spoke to high-level people at Elections Canada. On May 1st of this year, the Globe and Mail publishes the contents of the memo in which China identifies Canada as a high-priority target for political interference. On May 3rd, Trudeau denies knowing about the report and claims that it never got beyond CSIS, stating that CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern. On May 4th, Conservative MP Michael Chong testifies that he was informed by the current National Security Advisor, Jody Thomas, that the National Security Advisor knew about all of this almost 2 years ago, and that other government officials had also been informed by CSIS. On May 5th, Trudeau changes his story, saying he shared the best information I had at the time. Last week, Johnston resigns. But still, there's no announcement of a public inquiry. In my role as the director of Strong and Free Canada, I have several times in the past 2 years considered some sort of symbol those of us in the freedom movement could wear in order to recognize each other. I never pursued the idea beyond the concept stage, as I knew that producing and distributing such a symbol would take far more time than I had. I was very pleased at the recent Reclaiming Canada conference in Victoria to meet Sophie Siebert of Tulips for Freedom. Sophie and her partner Leslie Ann Goodall chose the tulip for the red, which symbolizes love, and green, which symbolizes hope and regeneration. In addition, they point out that tulips are often seen in large numbers, reflecting the fact that we are the freedom-oriented majority, despite what mainstream propaganda would have people believe. The tulip on their buttons has 3 peaks, mimicking the 3 peaks of our maple leaf, each peak being a reference to the Atlantic, Arctic, and Pacific Oceans, which bound our country. Finally, there is a historical element. The Netherlands gifted 100,000 tulips to Canada at the end of World War II, as a thank you for Canada's part in their liberation and regained freedoms. So far, over 20,000 tulip buttons, some featuring various slogans, have been distributed. You can get your own buttons via mail order at tulipsforfreedom.org. That's all for this week's free version of the Iron Will Report. If you want to help us spread the truth, please subscribe to our channel, then like and share this video. Social media algorithms promote content based upon how many followers, likes, and shares they get. So please take just a few moments to do that and help us share the truth with others. In this week's members version at ironwillreport.com, the indisputable fact that many of the recent Canadian forest fires were deliberately set. The death spiral of mainstream news continues, with 1,300 media jobs cut. An Alberta woman denied a vital organ transplant because she refused the COVID shot has once again had her constitutional rights denied. The coming death knell for mRNA and how it's directly tied to insurance losses. Dr. Mark Trozzi's CPSO hearing is happening this week, and Dr. Patrick Phillips, one of the very first doctors in Canada to stand up for his patients' rights, has had his license permanently suspended. White racism cost Starbucks $25 million. The federal government is spending $16 billion of our tax dollars on an electric vehicle battery factory. Quebec mandates elderly care homes to provide maid whether they want to or not. Dunk tanks are racist, and Bud Light is no longer America's #1 selling beer. For my interviews, we're introducing a small schedule change. Historically, we've been releasing interviews on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But with our news report coming out Friday evenings, I decided it might be easier for our viewers if some content was moved to the weekend. On Sunday, we'll release the last of my interviews from the Reclaiming Canada Conference. John Rustad, leader of the BC Conservative Party, will share his views on the political landscape in BC and on why he was ejected from the Liberal Party. Next Wednesday, an interview with Alberta pastor Brandon Pringle on the duty of the church to stand up to tyranny and what has happened historically when they didn't. Memberships at ironwillreport.com support our work at Strong and Free Canada to recover and defend our rights and freedoms. Get the truth that mainstream media won't report and our government doesn't want you to hear for just $9.95 per month with a 15-day free trial. I will never accept corporate or government funding in any form. Our efforts at ironwillreport.com to bring you the truth are entirely funded by our members. This is your guarantee that we're working for you. Help us to spread the truth and support our fight for our rights and freedoms. Sign up today for a 15-day free trial. Unsubscribe anytime in the first 15 days and you will not be charged. You're also not locked in and can cancel your subscription at any time.